fit about 80% of aneurysms that we have if they have a satisfactory neck on it. If the neck is diseased or very short or conical, then you have to change the approach. And that's why there was such a move, you know, all those operations were going to have to be done open. And this is the stimulus that we had about evolving into a fenestrated graft. And if you think back now, this is pre-internet day or whatever. I was very lucky to get a job in Royal Perth. And the Vascular Society in Great Britain and Ireland at that stage was run by people who were completely and utterly belonged to a different era. They were not looking at the endovascular age at all. There was no teaching going on in the UK or Ireland about this. So about 10 of us that year ended up in some different hospitals in Australia learning endovascular techniques because it was so obvious it was going to come down the road, and you know, an awful lot of the registrars went out to do that. And you have to be careful of institutions that aren't moving or keeping up with the times. So let's just concentrate on here. Right, this was a patient that we're seeing. So renal, lowest renal there, and a neck that you could not put an ordinary EVAR into. Does everybody see that? Because it would just fall out, and then you'd get that type 1 leak, and then you'd have to do an emergency operation and a conversion, which has a desperate mortality associated with it. So that was the sort of stimulus that was going on. But at the same time, General Electric had brought out a fabulous piece of software in which the digitalized image, the contrast in the CT, then could give you this sort of picture. And I remember one of the other the radiology registrar had shown it to us, and we used to fly airplanes up the little holes like that, and then it became very obvious that that wasn't actually the use for this software. We came up with that if you knew exactly where the ostia were, then you could make a covered graft opposite those holes to preserve the renal arteries. So this is where it started. And I drew this first picture because we had to have a concept side of things: kidneys, preserving the renals, and a covered stent from our ordinary cook top. So we got very quick permission to move to from in vivo studies to in vitro studies. Okay, this was my first drawing of it, because from those in vivo or in vitro studies, we found that when you're shoving the graft up and it comes out of the sheet, it was very obvious you're going to have to wrap it. And I don't know if you can see a thin line down there. Hopefully it'll come down to it. You have to reduce the diameter, and this is an essential part of fenestration. You've got to tie that in, and there's the hole. But look, now we've got graft material above the renals, all right? So these are a target vessel that needs to be preserved, right? So we had done a CT scan of our dog model and made this hole opposite where we saw the renal artery was, and had tethered it. And that just shows you the tethering that was taking place at the back, and I'll show you at a later video that in more detail in the latest fenestrated graft. So we were very fortunate. We were able to get a license and then use the CT scanner in Royal Perth at night time. But we used to have to come in the back door from the animal husbandry house. And I know I'm very sensitive about vivisection and that, but it was very much realized that this was essential research, and our license was fast ticketed. But we used to have a dog top and bottom, and we used to go up to CT after midnight when all the other patients had been out and do our CT scans. Our horror was always that they would start barking. And one night we had a long night in CT, and we were coming out about 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, and both dogs at this stage had begun to bark and shout. And this is actually one of the catering trolleys, and we were coming back down through the kitchen and out into the restaurant, and the thing was barking like mad, and there was hot dogs on the menu that day. But anyway, this is what we were finding, that we could safely fenestrate with a catheter, and these just transections of, if you think there's the aorta, there's the IBC, and you've got to reach over it, find the renal artery. There's just a still picture of it there. And that really has not changed that much in 16 years. It's still what we're doing today. You can begin to see the early markers. The cap, this is now gone, and the target renal artery that we were looking at.